that are out there of extraterrestrial origin.
A large, hairy creature with arms that hang down beside bore down on its sides.
And I told him my name, and when I told him the name, he said he was called Cole.
It was not anything from this earth that I'm quite sure of.
You're listening to the Strangeology podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Foran, and this is your place to explore the weird, strange, and unexplained. From cryptids and creatures, the paranormal, aliens and UFOs, forbidden knowledge, ancient mysteries, conspiracies, and more. All right, thanks for bearing with me, everyone. This is coming out like a day or so later than anticipated. It was a wild week. The post is up over on my Instagram and my TikTok now. I mentioned in the last episode that I had some official business that I was working on out at San Diego Comic-Con the previous week. And let me tell you, it was a wild ride. If you haven't been following my social media, the long and short of it is that the History Channel brought me out to go check out the panel for The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. And afterwards, they asked me if I would be interested in talking to the crew, the panelists. There was Dr. Travis Taylor. He's kind of the lead guy of the show, the executive producer, Joe Lessard, and also Jay Stratton, who is the former head of the UAP task force at the Pentagon. And he's now in the private sector. He's getting more involved with Skinwalker Ranch. Turns out that he had had some experience there years ago when the ranch was owned by Bigelow Aerospace. Anyway, the whole thing was just such a surreal experience. And I flew out on Wednesday, July 24th, and I woke up at 4 a.m. to go catch my flight. Turns out that at 2 a.m., I think because of the CrowdStrike stuff that was happening, that was grounding all these flights and affecting all these different airline companies, I was supposed to fly on American Airlines, and I got this notification on my phone at 2 a.m. after I was asleep saying that my flight was canceled and it was rescheduled and I wouldn't arrive in San Diego until like Friday, and I needed to be there for Thursday morning. So I was like, that's not going to work. I wound up having to book a flight out of JFK in New York and drove down to catch a afternoon flight out to San Diego. So I didn't get to the hotel after sitting on the tarmac for like an hour and 45 minutes. Yeah, it was just delay after delay. And finally got to the hotel about 10:30 p.m. Pacific time. And then in the morning went down, met with the PR team from History Channel, social media people, and then all the crew from Skinwalker Ranch. And it was just, we had breakfast. We went over the itinerary for the day. They drove us over to I think it was a Hilton. It was right next to the convention center, and they had this big ballroom with like a 2,500, 3,000 people capacity. And it was pretty full. So we got to sit up in the front, get some footage and just check it out. And then after we spent the afternoon in the press room, there were some TV journalists and stuff that were talking to the guys too. And then I had like the last interview, and so History Channel, they hired me to make some content, and it was really, really such a fun, interesting, and wild experience. And I'm looking forward to maybe some other stuff coming of this. You might want to stay tuned. There could be a podcast episode coming out of this, probably not for quite a while, but yeah. So I was hoping to get this episode all done in time for my normal Friday release schedule, but coming back on the back end of it all, it was just kind of, it gets a little wild sometimes, especially in the summer. And it's good to be back. So that was my experience with all of that. It's just totally wild. Very thankful for the whole experience. And if you haven't checked out the post, definitely head over to my Instagram or my TikTok and you'll find it there. All right. Well, that's about, probably all the time we have for updates with that. But just wanted to throw out a couple of quick reminders before we get started. Don't forget to set your podcast app to auto download so you never miss a new episode. And of course, don't forget to follow me over on all of my social media accounts, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Threads, X, etc. for more content, updates, giveaways, and all of that good stuff. And also make sure to check out my website, strangeology.com. I've got a blog there with a bunch of articles, hoping to add some new ones in soon. And P.S. if you are a writer and want to contribute to the blog, get in touch with me. And you can also sign up to my mailing list to receive updates and get occasional promo codes to my Etsy shop if you're ever looking to snag some Strangeology merch. I've got a ton of it and always get great feedback and people love the designs that I make. And yeah, so definitely check all that out. But the best way to support the Strangeology podcast is, of course, to tell your friends and anyone who loves the strange and unexplained. And if you really like Strangeology and want to support the show, you can always do so by becoming a member by heading over to patreon.com/Strangeology. And you can join for as little as $1 per month. And any support helps out a ton and keeps the lights on here at Strangeology HQ. And I also want to take a moment to welcome some new members to the Patreon. Welcome to Janet, Rebecca, and Veronica. Thank you all so much for signing up and supporting the show. And just to give you some previews of what you get when you become a member, there's 6 tiers, and the higher tiers that you go, it unlocks more perks. Some of the things you can get are early access to new episodes that are ad-free, as well as access to the members-only episode extension called Strangeology Beyond, which is extended guest interviews or sometimes a whole episode in and of itself with a whole different research topic on my research-based episodes. There's also a permanent merch discount to my Etsy shop, as well as exclusive merch, voting power on new topics, bonus content, and more. So if you want to join a growing community of like-minded people who are into the strange and unexplained, it's a great place to be. As always, I appreciate the support, and the more of it I get, the more content I can create for all of you. And to those members out there, thank you so much for the continued support. And one more quick announcement as this episode drops. Next week is Squonkapalooza in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. The event is happening pretty much all day. I think it's like a 9 or 10 to 6 p.m. at Central Park, and that's in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. I'm going to be vending there, so come to my tent and say hello, maybe pick up some merch, and there's going to be all sorts of other awesome vendors and friends that are there. So definitely check that out. You can go to my website to find out more details or find the Facebook event as well. I'll have the link for all of that in the show notes. All right, that's enough of that. Why don't we get into today's episode? For today's show, I brought on a brand new guest, Tate Hieronymous, who is a Bigfoot Sasquatch researcher. He gets out in the field. He's been a part of the Bluff Creek Project, and his current project is Sasquatch, a search for Sabe. So this was a super fun conversation. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All right, folks, welcome back. Joining me today on the show is Tate Hieronymus. Tate is a Bigfoot researcher, independent filmmaker, podcaster, fellow musician. Tate has been involved with things like the Bluff Creek Project and his more recent series, Sasquatch, A Search for Sabe. So we're going to be getting into the nitty gritty about Bigfoot today. So anyway, thanks Tate for being here. So glad to finally have you on, and we got our schedules to work out. How are you doing today?
Oh, I can't complain. It's just another day on planet Earth. So
That's very true. That's very true. So I wanted to go over some basics here. What got you interested in Bigfoot in the first place? Was there like a certain moment in your life where you were like, there's something else out there, this humanoid thing that science doesn't acknowledge?
Yeah, I think it was kind of when Monster Quest. I kind of just was watching a bunch of stuff on TV like Animal Planet and all that. I discovered Monster Quest, and I thought that was a really cool show. And it showed the Patterson-Gimlin film, and that's what really got me intrigued. So, and I can't remember when that was, but that was forever ago. Like I want to say maybe 2000, 2001, around that time. And it just kind of took off from there.
Right on. Yeah, that was probably around the time that show was in its heyday for sure. And I'm sure a lot of people got into cryptids and Bigfoot around that same time in that era. I'm more of the sightings era, like late 80s, early 90s.
Okay, yeah.
for getting into all this stuff. And then, there's even people who are like, in search of back in like the 70s with Leonard Nimoy and all that. So yeah, it's just like a long running thing here. Now you are involved with the Bluff Creek Project. Can you talk about what that is and what's it all about?
So the Bluff Creek Project was started by Steven Strufert, Ian Carton, and those are the two guys who kind of started it, and they wanted to figure out where the film site was, the Patterson-Gimlin film site. Because after so many years, regrowth and everything, that you don't see it as open as it was in the film because a flood actually wiped that all out. And so because of regrowth, it kind of covered up and it just became a lost site. And so there was some people kind of trying to figure out where it was. But the Bluff Creek Project ended up finding the film site and confirming it in 2011. And that was kind of the reason behind it. And then they ended up starting to put trail cameras down there shortly after that to hopefully maybe try and see if they can get another photo of Bigfoot. So they ended up doing that, starting the trail camera project. And then that's kind of been what they've been doing for the past, I don't know how many years it's been. I can't even think right now, but it's been a while. Because of it, they ended up capturing photos of the Humboldt marten, which was thought to be extinct up in that area. And so they kind of proved it was still thriving up in that part of the country. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And Bluff Creek is in Northern California, correct? Yeah.
It's situated kind of between Redding and Eureka. So you got the Redding on 5 highway going like toward near Shasta, and then you got Eureka on the coast. So
yeah. And it's a pretty remote area. So, back in the 1960s when they went out there
yeah.
And who knows what could be
it
out there.
It might have been more remote than it is today. I mean, it's pretty remote now, but in the 60s it would be pretty remote.
Yeah. I mean, back then, the 50s and 60s, like the interstate highways that were just being constructed across the continental lower 48,
Exactly.
So, yeah. Everything was a lot more remote back then. Now, have you gone out to Bluff Creek yourself?
Yeah, I go. So when I was living in California, I started going to Bluff Creek. I want to say in like 2016, and I've been going there ever since. So I lived in California, and then while I was living there, I went twice a year from 2016 to 2018, and then once a year ever since that. So I've been there quite a few times. It's one of my favorite places to go, and I'm actually going back there this year.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Can you share any memorable experience that you've had while being out there? I assume you do kind of a few day stint camping and all that kind of stuff.
Some memorable things have happened out there, you know. Not all of them are Bigfoot related. Some of them are just hanging out with my friends or family that I've taken there, and that's a special moment for me.
Sure.
But one that's not really Bigfoot related, I got to go to the Patterson-Gimlin Film site with Bob Gimlin himself. And that was pretty special. And so my last name, Hieronymus, is very infamous in the Bigfoot world because you could think of Bob Hieronymus, who claimed to wear this suit.
Right.
No relation
though.
No. And so it's kind of funny because that was the first time Hieronymus and Gimlin have been on the film site together in history. So the two names.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's funny. Yeah, kind of like maybe not arch enemies, but that's funny, man.
Something like that.
So how did you get connected with Bob?
So I was just in Bluff Creek doing a thing, just hanging out. And then I went back home and I found out, Bob Gimlin's going up to the film site. And I'm like, what? I got to get back up there. And so, because some of the guys that live over there, like Rowdy Kelly and Jamie, they'll all go to the film site and then they'll give people tours who might ask for a tour if they contact the Bluff Creek Project. And so Rowdy Kelly, a member of the Bluff Creek Project, he went up there and met with Bob Gimlin and all the people that were going with him, and they took him down to the film site. And then I found out, because I'm in this chat with all those guys, that Bob's going to be there. I'm like, I got to go. So I drove back up and went for it. And it was a good time.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, how could you not, have the opportunity to meet one of the two guys who was there?
Yeah. You don't pass that up.
Yeah, exactly. Now you have like a film about the Bluff Creek Project, just as a sidebar here. You had mentioned that the narration was by, and this is speaking of, connections with quasi something famous, well-known people, that it was narrated by Holiday Reinhorn, who, if those who don't know, that's Rainn Wilson's wife. How did that connection happen?
So Rainn Wilson, for those who are living under a rock, he plays Dwight Schrute on The Office, which is a really popular TV show. But Rainn posted on his Instagram, he's like, hey, follow my wife, Holiday Reinhorn. And so I did. And so I have a private Instagram account, so people have to request to follow me. And so I followed her, like, whatever. And I didn't think anything would happen. And I got a request from her to follow me. I'm like, okay. So I accepted it. And then I thought of like an idea, like, hey, maybe I can get her to narrate it. So I messaged her on Instagram, and she said she was interested. And, I went and filmed everything, wrote the narration, and then the day I was going to their house to record it, I took my mother with me, and she's like, hey, you may want to ask them about money, because did you ever talk to them about how much they want? I'm like, no, it never came up. And so I messaged her. I was like, hey, how much money do you think you'd want, or whatever? Because I was waiting for like, a crazy amount of like, I can't do that. But the email that I got was she could take no money because it's her contribution to the mystery of the universe.
Oh, interesting.
And so we went to her house.
Yeah.
We went to their house and we recorded the narration, and that's how that came out. And it came out really well.
That's awesome. Very cool. Very cool. And very kind too.
Very
to
kind.
Volunteer.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah, they're very kind people. They've been very nice to me over the years.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, going back to Bluff Creek and the Patterson-Gimlin film, I'm sure many listeners out there know what it's all about, and probably plenty of people in the world who aren't in the Bigfoot circle. But can you kind of explain like the 101 of the Patterson-Gimlin film? What exactly transpired in that leading up to that moment, and what they found at this site?
Bob and Roger, they came down from Yakima, Washington, in October. They were kind of there for a couple weeks in Bluff Creek, kind of riding around because Roger was making a Bigfoot documentary. And they've been riding around the creek, and just one day on October 20th, 1967, they were going down this part of Bluff Creek on horseback, and they stumbled upon this creature drinking out of the creek, and she got startled, and then their horses got startled. Roger got thrown from his horse. Then he went and grabbed the camera out of the saddlebag and started filming. And that's when you see Patty start walking across the creek, doing that look she does. So that's kind of what happened. That's the Patterson-Gimlin film in a nutshell.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's a really remote place. You would think, why would you go so deep and so far to, perpetrate a hoax? It doesn't make sense. And if people who have met Bob, like myself, and I know other people who have, they don't ever get the impression he's lying. He doesn't come off that way or anything like that. And I just don't think it's a hoax either. It just looks too good to be faked.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's one of the most hotly debated and contested films of pretty much anything in history, right?
Yeah, it's up next to the Zapruder film, the JFK assassination video.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you got people claiming that they wore the suit, the one who shares your namesake. And even to this day, I feel like it's at least once a week on Reddit or some Facebook group where people are talking about the Patterson-Gimlin film, and some people present arguments that debunk it allegedly, and others are like, I mean, just that doesn't look like a suit. They didn't have the technology back then. Just look at Planet of the Apes, which came out like a year or two later, and you can tell those are suits. I mean, they're pretty good suits for the time, but it's nowhere near what what's in the Patterson-Gimlin film and what Patty is. And even with like the 4K upscale of it, there's certain details that are more evident, like there's a jiggle in the thigh, there's you can see like musculature and stuff, it seems. So yeah.
They didn't have technology to make costumes like that back then. Like you brought up Planet of the Apes, another one is 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Right.
And there's they've had a lot of money to make costumes for that specific reason, and the technology just wasn't there to make costumes look that good. And so there's debates within costume makers in Hollywood about it too. Like, oh, I didn't make it, and it's not. This is too fake, or it looks really good, and I wish I could have made it.
Right. Yeah. That's, I don't know. Yeah. That it just, I mean, to me, it seems like there's a good chance of it being legit, and it's certainly the best looking piece of videographic evidence that there is of a Bigfoot, a Sasquatch, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, there's always one thing that people talk about with Roger Patterson leading up to or prior to the whole event that was filmed, that he had done some sketches of like a female Bigfoot with breasts, and obviously Patty in the video has breasts, and people are like, oh well, why would that be? It's like, well, maybe it was just coincidence,
Right.
Obviously, if there's a population of upright walking primates who may be somewhat of a cousin related to humans, there's going to be males and females.
Yeah, there's this really good podcast that they do a 6-part breakdown of the Patterson-Gimlin film, and each episode's like almost 2 hours or an hour at least. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's the Astonishing Legends podcast, and they have this 6-part breakdown of the whole Patterson-Gimlin film where they talk about the camera, all the people involved, just everything, Patty itself, the film itself. It goes into like such a deep dive. You're like, man, there's so much to unpack here, and it's such a complicated, not just the film itself, but just everything before and after the film. There's so many moving parts and pieces. It's like, where do you start?
Yeah. I always love the analysis videos from Thinker Thunker, and I believe he's done some stuff on Patty as well, and he'll analyze like body proportions and stuff like that. And if I'm remembering correctly, he was saying like the proportions of Patty aren't human. The arms are way too long. Is the mid-tarsal break evident in the video? I can't.
I want to say
recall.
It was.
Yeah, which like that's not how humans walk. And even if you were in a suit,
I don't think that would show.
Who would have that knowledge back then either?
No.
Yeah. It's.
I mean, if you're gonna think about tracks in Bluff Creek, a good example is Ray Wallace, who faked tracks out there in the 50s. Obviously, as time goes on now, faking tracks can get a lot more easier, but I don't even know how common knowledge like mid-tarsal breaks were in tracks back then. Like how many people knew about that. So
Yeah. It seems like the odds are stacked in the favor of it being real, at least, in my humble opinion.
No, I agree. Because there's obviously tracks that were casted at the film site, both by Roger Patterson and Bob Titmus. And then Bob Titmus casted one that's pretty famous, that there's a picture of it that Lyle Laverty took. But it's the really famous mid-tarsal break track by Patty. And if that was a fake footprint, you wouldn't have that. So
yeah. It's I think it's a very, very compelling piece of footage for
100%.
sure. Now, yeah. So you mentioned that you've got this rare copy of a Bob Gimlin interview. Are there any revelations in it that your average Bigfooter might not be aware of? Is there any like interesting information in there, or is it kind of what we already know?
It's pretty much what we already know. He talks about the sighting and then kind of what happened after it just a little bit. But what makes it different than other ones is this video was actually filmed by me at the film site with the big tree in the background that's visible in the Patterson-Gimlin film. And I purposely did that because that's a very unique place to interview Bob is on the site itself. And to my knowledge, maybe one other person, I don't know, but if they have it, it's not public anywhere. But mine is not public online anywhere at all. The only place you can see the full interview is actually at Cliff Barackman's Museum in Boring, Oregon, the North American Bigfoot Center.
Oh, wow.
Because the full interview is actually 6 minutes long. But jumping back to my very first film that Holiday Reinhorn narrated, I do have like a minute and 30 seconds of that interview in that documentary.
Ah, okay.
So,
gotcha.
yeah, the full 6 minute interview is only at Cliff's place.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
So I'm pretty happy about that.
Oh,
That's in my collection.
yeah. Go to Cliff's Museum.
Yes, it's actually really cool.
Yeah.
People should go.
Yeah, I got to get out to the West Coast again someday, but yeah, it's probably going to be a while. Yeah. Now, Bob stayed silent on everything for a really long time, didn't he? I know Roger promoted the film a lot up until his untimely death in the early 70s.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he passed, but Bob didn't really want any of the limelight for a very long time.
No, it kind of actually almost wrecked his marriage and everything. And then people were harassing his wife because she worked at a bank and they were harassing her and different things like that. And I don't think Bob really wanted anything to do with it for the longest time. And I think he kind of just broke his silence and then started talking about it openly. And I guess the rest is history at that point.
Right. Yeah. I feel like that adds a lot more credibility to the whole thing too. It's not like he was out for fame and fortune. Maybe Roger was a little bit. And I know that there's people who also confuse, like people are like, oh, he confessed that he hoaxed it on his deathbed,
Which is not true.
That's not true. The people are confusing that with, I think it's the guy who took the surgeon's photo of Nessie.
Oh,
maybe,
yeah.
If I'm remembering correctly, because that one's
one's a hoax. That one, yeah. I heard about that. And there, like I said, there's so many moving pieces and parts to the Patterson-Gimlin filming, like not just the film itself, but just everything after it, like what Roger did and stuff, and what happened with Bob and all that. And
right,
it gets crazy the more you look at it. It's like Bigfoot itself is a rabbit hole. The subject, if you go down a rabbit hole, it's going to keep getting weirder. The Patterson-Gimlin film is also a rabbit hole in itself. You don't know what to make sense of sometimes. Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned Astonishing Legends doing this several part series. I mean, you've got, the forensics experts doing, like, looking at every angle of this thing.
And they actually talked to MK Davis too, I think, on like the last episode of it, and got his opinion. And
oh, interesting. Yeah,
because they talked about Philip Morris, who's the guy that claimed to make the suit, and then you got Bob Hieronymus, who claimed to wear the suit, and then you got Roger Patterson, who they were saying paid them, and then you got Roger Patterson's brother-in-law, Al Diatley, who Roger actually mailed the film up to him to have it developed, but Al had it developed at like some unknown place, so nobody still knows where he got it developed. And Al Diatley kind of forced Roger to force Bob out of like any money made on the film and everything. So
interesting.
There's a whole, like, I guess what they were getting at is like there was a lot more influence from Al Diatley than Roger actually was doing himself. So
interesting.
And then actually Al Diatley did fund Roger to help make his documentary that he was doing at the time before he filmed Patty. So Patty was just a happy accident. Yeah,
I would say so. Yeah. Well, yeah, we could go on forever about the PG film for sure.
Oh,
yeah. Quick sidebar though. And I always ask when I have fellow musicians on, as I'm a musician myself, just for fun. What do you play, and what are your like top three favorite bands?
Man, top three is a hard narrow. Can I do top five?
Oh, totally.
Okay, so my instrument that I usually play, I can play drums. I'm self-taught on drums. I'm not very good at guitar, but I'm better at bass. But I play a Rickenbacker. I got a 1978. Bought it in Chicago. I love it. Such a fun bass.
That's awesome.
And so when I was in a band, that was like my primary bass. I would play live and all that. So, and my top five favorite bands. Oh man, this is hard. Ween is really up there.
Okay.
I've seen them a lot of times. I actually met the lead singer at Chipotle down the street from my house. Ran into him there.
No kidding.
Tool is up there.
Sure.
I'm going to have to fall back on Green Day because I grew up on Dookie.
There you go.
Oh, man. This is a tough one. Probably Primus since I'm a bass player.
Okay.
And then last one. Oh, man. I might have to look at my phone and cheat for this one. Because I'm trying to remember what. You know what I'm saying? You always forget until you see like the name of a band.
Right.
God. Now I'm gonna blank. You know what? I'd probably have to go with the Flaming Lips.
Ah. Gotcha. I think is it this summer or this fall? I feel like they're playing up near where I am, and my partner, they're one of my partner's favorite bands, and she's like, we're going to this concert,
dude. It's
so I'm probably gonna go see them.
Aren't they? They're touring with Weezer, I think.
Yeah, I think that's correct. Yeah, I think we're going down to Boston.
Dang, dude.
I think that's where
they're playing. They're playing near me in September, but I might be moving, so I don't know if I'll be able to get to go see them or not. So I'm kind of just, I'm not buying a ticket yet because I don't want to spend that much money and not go.
Well, concert tickets are just so expensive these days. There's been a lot of really, bands that I really like that I've wanted to see coming around up in the New England area, and it's just like, oh, I'm looking at these ticket prices because everything gets snatched up by bots immediately, and then they get resold for triple the price, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, that's why, like, when I see tickets and they're relatively cheap, I'm like, you know what? I'll make the money back later somehow. I'm gonna buy this ticket.
Right? Yeah. Even if you don't go, you can sell it on some. Site. Yeah. Well, cool. Thanks for entertaining the little the side quest there for a second.
It's all good. I like music.
Yeah. I've never actually played a Rickenbacker before. But I do.
Very nice bass to play.
Yeah, I started my musical journey playing bass for quite a long time. I still have a number of basses, but I primarily play guitar now for my current band and sing. But I do have a 1973 or 74 Gibson Ripper, which there was one in the local music shop where I grew up, and I remember seeing it in the used section, and this was probably around like 2005 or 2006, and I was like, this bass is awesome. I didn't have the money to buy that one, but a couple of years later, I found one for a good price on like eBay or something, and I was like, I have the money, I can get it. And it's a little beat up and it needs work, but it's just one of those collector's items that's cool to have. My one of my old guitarists was trying to rewire like the pickups. I had to buy a new pickup because one of them was busted, and he put in like there's like a phase selector switch on these old basses, and it's only supposed to have 4 positions, and he put in a 11 position because Spinal Tap, like an 11 position like phase switcher, but only like 4 positions work, so you gotta like spin it around all sorts of times. I think the knob fell off eventually.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
my uncle works at a guitar store. They're not like a guitar center. You can't go in there and play guitar and buy one. They build guitars, but they make Sean Lennon's guitars and guitars for Imagine Dragons.
No kidding.
They're called Bilt, BILT. They're out of Des Moines, Iowa, and
oh wow!
I was like, "Hey, can you guys make me an all gold bass guitar?" Because they made what's his name from Imagine Dragons, but they make his guitar, and he wanted all gold. It's fretboard, frets, body, everything's just all gold. And he's like, "Yeah, we can do it." And he was telling me how much it is. I'm like, "Holy crap!"
Yeah, no, that's probably very.
I'm gonna get it done.
Yeah, nice. Well, I hope that happens for you someday.
Dude, it would be so cool.
Yeah. Well, let's get back to some Bigfoot stuff here. So your more recent endeavor is this Sasquatch, a search for Sabe. What is Sabe, and what are you hoping to achieve with this project? You've got a number of episodes up on your YouTube channel all about it.
I mean, I think Sabe is another Native American name for Sasquatch. And I actually got the idea from watching Les Stroud's Survivorman Bigfoot, and he was in Bluff Creek talking about how he was in Manitoba, Canada, and up there they have what's called the 7 teachings. And there's among the 7 teachings, I can't remember how many animals, but there's different animals, and they each represent a different attribute. Like one animal can represent strength or whatever. But Bigfoot or Sabe represents honesty. And so I really like that because, there's a lot of fakery on television and stuff. And I want my my series to represent Bigfoot, but I want it to represent honesty. So in the beginning, the title was just A Search for Sabe. And then Jeremiah and other people were like, "Oh, dude, people don't know what Sabe means. So you got to put like Bigfoot." So that's when I did Sasquatch, A Search for Sabe. And so that's kind of how the title came about. And that's what Sabe means. It's another name for Bigfoot. And then the end goal for it, I don't know what I hope to achieve with it, just kind of just doing it for fun. I kind of just want to make a series and show people what we're doing and all that. And what I think what I wanted the series to be is to show you what it's really like in the field. And it's actually it's really boring. It's, if you watch my series, it's not like the most exciting series ever, but there's some entertainment, there's some laughable parts, and then there's some good stuff that I'm very intrigued by what's going on. So it's kind of my thing where I'm just going with it now. That's kind of my end goal for it, I guess. Really, just keep doing what I'm doing with it.
Yeah, sure. So, essentially you're going out into the field, into different areas to look for Bigfoot and find evidence, which is cool. And obviously it's not as sensationalized as certain shows that are on network television where there's action, adventure, and suspense. Right. When you're doing the nitty gritty and your boots on the ground, you might be out there for a few days and nothing happens.
Well, like what was it? It was this last summer we were there. We were in Bluff Creek for, good Lord, how many? Like 3.5 weeks, 3 weeks. And so
Wow.
I filmed so much that the first episode I put out was actually almost 2 hours long, and I split it up into 2 episodes. And then I had so much extra footage, I made a 2-part episode called Unseen Footage or Unused Footage or whatever. And so, but if I would have edited everything together, it would have been like a 4-hour video. And
Yeah.
and that was really fun. But we went up there, and for the whole 3 weeks, we got skunked out. It just,
Oh,
yeah.
really?
But you know what? We hit it every year, and that's the part of research. You kind of go up there and just do it. It's not, you don't always get everything, and I think my series really reflects that. And then when we do, we've had moments where we've actually caught stuff before when filming. During filming. And so, yeah, we have a lot of fun with it, and we enjoy it. And then we try to do other things people aren't doing. So we really think out the box with our research methods and just try and do different things, even if they seem absurd or crazy or whatever. So,
yeah. What are some of the out of the box things that you do that other people aren't doing?
So we'll like set up a dummy camp and put like audio recorders in it and like make a fake fire ring and just kind of do that, pretend like somebody's there. Some other things, I would like take my bass out in the field with an amp and play music and try that. We've tried music before, laser light shows. We've been doing that. And all these just wacky things. Because we're just like thinking, man, you know what? A lot of researchers now, I mean, yeah, the best thing to do is be a camper, stay in camp, because you're not going to find them. There's no way they're going to come into you if they're interested or not. But we were like, how do we make us more interesting than what they've been seeing? Let's have live music. Let's do a rave with laser lights and everything and all that. Because I think your typical Bigfoot, if they are spying on campers, are just seeing people playing guitar or just talking around a fire, not really being interesting. So trying to be very interesting is the best approach. And we're really taking that a little too literal.
Right. Yeah. Throwing parties in the woods and seeing if Bigfoot wants to come and play.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with it.
That's awesome.
It's still a type of research method. Whether it works or not, I don't know. It's probably, just another way of doing it.
Yeah. I mean, you do have to get creative sometimes with this kind of stuff.
Oh, 100
because
100%.
Yeah, because we don't have 100% undeniable proof just yet. There's a lot of really good and compelling evidence, but yeah, and these animals, these creatures, if they're real, I suspect they're very intelligent, and there's a reason why, they're very elusive.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Now, you've also been involved with some other crews out there, like Small Town Monsters. You've been on some Beyond the Trail episodes. How were those experiences with the STM crew, and was there any interesting evidence or experiences in those situations that you can talk about?
Yeah, there was a couple. There was a couple times in Florida where we had some stuff happen near where I live. Actually, currently, we were out one night. I did a wood knock and we got a response back to us, and that was very interesting.
Wow!
And so,
yeah,
that was really cool. And one of the crazier times I've ever had actually in the field was 2021 when I was with. Was it 2021 or 2020? 2020, I can't remember. 2020 or 2021, one of the two. I can't remember what year it was. It's been so long. You go on so many trips, you forget.
Yeah.
But we were out there. This is the first time I met Alex and Eli. We met up in Southern California, and then we drove north through San Francisco, going to different spots. And they've never been to Bluff Creek. And so we get out into Bluff Creek eventually, and I'm driving. I had a Honda Ridgeline at the time. So it sat up a little bit higher. I had a little bit better tires. And Eli is driving this little Toyota Corolla. And there's this one section of road where there's kind of like rocks that come down off of the hill and kind of cover the road. And some of these rocks are really sharp. So we stopped with picking up rocks and kind of chucking them down the hill towards the creek, and they're hitting the bottom. And me and Eli and Alex are doing that. And then Alex is like, hey, do you guys hear that? And Eli and I are like, no, what'd you hear? He's like, I thought I heard like a roar or something. And so Eli's like, I didn't hear nothing. He picks up another rock and throws it. And all of a sudden these rocks start coming down at us. And Alex is like, hey, get out of the way. And he books it one way. And Eli and I take cover behind my car. And as we're looking up where the rocks came from, we hear something down in the creek below us walking away. It was the weirdest thing ever. It felt coordinated how it happened. And then, because the next day we went up to where these rocks came down, and there's an old road it's decommissioned road, but you can walk up there. So we went up to the road, and to get the rocks to fall on us as they did that night, we had to pile them up and push them off. So that's when it really occurred to me. I was like, man, this was really weird. It felt coordinated. Like we were terrorizing something down there. Something up here got our attention by pushing rocks at us, which it worked. And then whatever was down there made its getaway. So
wow,
that was pretty strange.
Yeah, that is super interesting.
It's all on camera. And then this same trip, we were in this meadow, and we had a road group. It was Alex and Eli's last night, and I was staying there a couple more nights. But we had a road group that consisted of a couple of friends of mine, Ron Reed being one of them. That's in my series. He was on the road group, and they were walking the road. And then me and Alex, Eli, and Jonathan Easley, Western Bigfoot Exploration, we were in the meadow. And then Alex and I were kind of pushed up against these trees in the back of the meadow. And then Jonathan and Eli were kind of in this little island area where this giant tree is, and they're kind of hanging around there. And then I radioed to my friend Stevie, who's on the road group as well. I was like, hey, can you guys do a call? He does a call. And then maybe a couple minutes later, Alex and I are I'm standing up. Alex is sitting down. I'm looking into the meadow. We hear something get thrown at us, and like a branch breaks right behind us, probably within like 15 yards. I know that freaked Alex up.
Wow.
Or freaked Alex out, because he stood up and was like, I'm going to stand up now. And so that was creepy, because we heard a knock later on from the same direction but further away. And so
wow.
2020, I think it was the year, that was the best year that I've ever had for potential activity and Bigfoot and all that. It was the wildest trip and craziest stuff I've ever had happen in Bluff Creek. Definitely the most aggressive kind of encounters to have.
Yeah. Yeah. When you have rocks coming at you from a source unknown and it's dark out, like, forget it.
Dude, it was, we were like, what the heck? Like, I'm glad Eli caught that rock slide on film, because describing it's one thing, but when you actually watch it, you're like, this actually happened. And then every time I'll watch the whole Bigfoot Mountain by Small Town Monsters, not Bigfoot Mountain, Bigfoot at Bluff Creek, which is the episode that all happens in. And I'll watch that from time to time. And I'll think back on a lot of these memories. I'm like, dude, this was wild.
Yeah. Yeah. You were there.
Yeah.
And got to experience something that definitely points to there being something intelligent out in the wilderness that we don't have a classification for.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah. What would you say is your favorite part about getting out into the field looking for Bigfoot? Is it just kind of the hangs, or just the prospect of maybe finding more evidence?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, going by yourself is boring because, for one, it's just you and yourself. I mean, I get there's a joy in it. I'll do it here and there. But when you go with other like-minded people, you kind of feed off each other, and you're there for the same reason. And as a buddy of mine, Kip Morrow, says, he just likes going camping with his buddies, and then Bigfoot is a bonus, So, I like the mystery, and then I keep going even if nothing does happen, because when something does happen, that's the reason why I'm going back out there.
Right, exactly. And it just adds to the evidence pile, which, maybe someday will contribute to proving whether or not these things exist. But yeah.
And
now I'm wondering. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was real
Go
quickly.
ahead.
I was just gonna say it, and I feel like a lot of people are trying to like prove this to themselves or prove it to others. I'm not really trying to do that. For me, I already believe I already believe that Bigfoot is real from just personal experience. So I'm not out there trying to prove it to myself. But I'm also not out there trying to prove it to other people. I'm not trying to get like I just want to get some footage that'd be cool, man. You know what I'm saying? That's all I want. It's like I take it very seriously, and I'm not going to fake anything or lie about anything because I'm not about that. I'm really out there for just like the thrill of it. Because, if you've ever been squatching, you had something happen, your adrenaline does go up. It's quite you get like this adrenaline high. It's weird. It's like you look forward to it the next time you get to do it. So
makes sense. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at though on it.
Yeah, I've never been squatching, Bigfooting before. I know there was a group somewhere nearby. I'm not sure if they're associated with the BFRO or not. But yeah, I remember hearing about them back in the day, where they'd go out and do their nightly expeditions and searches over a weekend or whatever, or do some wood knocks and all that stuff. But yeah, maybe someday I'll go. Maybe someday. Yeah, sounds like a good time.
Yeah, it's never dull.
So, yeah. Now you obviously go out in the field and do a lot of on the ground research, but do you ever talk to locals in the areas that you go to? Like, how much does eyewitness testimony factor into your research and filmmaking?
I've never really like reached out to people for my filmmaking, like about, eyewitness reports. Normally because it's like, it's 50-50 if it was a credible report or not. And so I think there's already too many people doing like eyewitness podcasts and documentaries. It's like, I just don't want to do that. I'm just kind of doing my thing, and then I'm working with other people that I trust really well in the field, and we put our minds together about wildlife and, just different parts of the country where we think they might be, and just we go for it that way. Because at the end of the day, the only person I really trust about a sighting is myself, or someone I really, really, really trust. So,
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. There are certainly a lot of people that aren't necessarily honest about it, and Sabe is about being honest. So
yeah. And it's like,
yeah.
I just don't really, then it's like, do we do an investigation where this person had a sighting? And that should, plus there's a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a lot more outreach and stuff you have to do to get prepared for if you're going to go film and stuff. Then it's like, then you got to have a schedule. And it's, I just kind of like to get out in the field and start filming, and kind of just make, just make it happen. Just go out there and make it happen. Start filming.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. That definitely gives you a more unique and what would be the word for it? I guess like a kind of more aerodynamic approach. Like you're trimming the fat. I suppose.
Even I've tried it before in the past where I've planned like something, and then I get out there and start filming, and then it becomes something completely different than what I had planned. And I'm like, man, I'm not going to plan these anymore. You know what? Like, I guess there is a certain planning to an extent. Like, I get a group together of people that I really want to go with. And then, leading up to a trip, I guess it's not really a theme, but we always try different ideas we can film and see if they work or not. I guess it's about filming ideas while in the field and not necessarily going for a certain narrative. Like, okay, last episode was about mind speak. This episode is going to be about portals, And so now mine's like, hey, let's just put our minds together. Let's just film us talking about how we're going to do a night investigation and let people see that boring side and what actually goes into doing something. And you come up with a cool plan, then you film it. And you film the night investigation. If things happen, your plan did or didn't work, or maybe they just weren't in the area, and you can always try the plan again next time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Now, that just brings it into my mind. You're mentioning mind speak and portals. This leads me to, what do you think Bigfoot is? Do you think they're flesh and blood primates, or do you entertain the idea that some people claim there's this paranormal aspect to them? A lot of people will report UFOs or portals or Bigfoot's shape-shifting or turning invisible. Like, what do you make of all of that side of Bigfoot?
From my personal experience, I haven't really experienced a lot of that. So I've been on the side for flesh and blood for a long time. Just from my experience, personally, that's where I'm pretty heavily on that side. There's one instance that was pretty weird that happened in South or North Florida. I was with RPG. This was actually during the Beyond the Trail episode. I was with RPG, James Brost, Stacy Brown, Alex, and Eli, and we were working this area. And so we had a plan where Stacy took us to an area, but we had a plan where Alex, Eli, and Stacy would walk ahead with lights on up the road, and then we would follow 5 minutes later, me, James, and RPG without lights. And so they walked up the road, and then we ended up leaving, following behind them without lights. And probably within 2 minutes of walking, we hear a clear knock off to our left. It stopped us in our tracks. We're like, what is that? And then we were deciding, do we knock back? Do we do anything? And we were like, okay, let's just continue walking. And then almost immediately after we started walking again, another knock off to our right, unsolicited. We're like, dude, and these are the clearest knocks I've ever heard. But
wow. This is North Florida?
Yeah, this is North Florida.
Wow.
And then leading up to this moment, We switched the roles where RPG and I and James would walk back with lights on, and then Stacy, Eli, and Alex would follow behind us with lights out. So we got back to the car. RPG is talking with another buddy of his. Me and James are kind of hanging out, and it irritated me because the knocks, I didn't get those recorded. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to record audio right now. And I put the audio recorder on the hood of my car, and James and I are talking as we're waiting for Alex, Eli, and Stacy to meet up with us. And all of a sudden, me and James at the same time, we go, whoa, do you see that? We saw this bright blue ball of light kind of dash between the trees. And we're like, what the heck? And you could hear some of the audio like, you saw that, right? And I'm like, yeah, dude, I saw it. It was insane. And so that was pretty wild.
Yeah. Yeah. And you think that orb of light was correlated with the wood knocks?
I don't know. For me personally, I can't really say Bigfoot and like paranormal. I don't think they're like the one and the same, even if they happen in the same areas at the same time. I think that's just a coincidence, just from my personal experience. Because like I said, I haven't really experienced that much in the woods of like weird things like balls of light. It's mainly just been like something physical, like a wood knock or something like that.
Yeah,
but nothing weird except for that one time.
Yeah. Well, those types of things are, I don't know, very, very, very rare, and maybe it was just coincidence. How big was the ball of light? Was it pretty large, or
maybe a little bit bigger than a softball?
Interesting. I wonder if there's any legends or stories of ghost lights or spook lights in that part of Florida.
From what Stacy was saying, he said he's been seeing lights in different areas, weird lights and stuff. And so I was like, okay, that's weird. But I was not expecting that to happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it wasn't like my eyes were playing tricks on me or anything. It was really, really, really cold that night too. It was also weird. This is the coldest night this is the coldest like time in Florida for some weird reason, no matter where we went in Florida. And I find that strange because we had Bigfoot activity, then it was really cold, and then we had the blue ball of light, and I'm like, whoa. And it was clear as day, blue. And the two of us, that's the way I know like it wasn't my mind playing tricks on me, because both myself and somebody else saw it.
Yeah, that's wild. I've seen the house I grew up at. I've mentioned this story a couple times, but when I was growing up, I saw this orange like beach ball sized orb of light go through like really fast in the woods that was next to my house. It was just like a zip, and I thought like I was just seeing things, but then a couple minutes later, I saw it come back from the direction that it headed to in the first place, back to its point of origin.
So
and I was just like, I'm going to go inside. I don't know what the hell that is.
Dude, yeah.
So, yeah. And there wasn't a Bigfoot around or anything. So, I mean, it's like, who knows what these things are. I did an episode about spook lights, ghost lights a long time ago. If anyone hasn't listened to it, definitely check it out. It's a super interesting phenomena.
It is really weird though. Now I feel like those witnesses are like, man, I saw a Bigfoot, but I don't know who to tell, or it's just like, I don't know. It's weird that I saw it. You know what I'm saying? It's sometimes.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's.
I wish I didn't see it because
I
don't get like PTSD or like have trouble sleeping, but I wish I didn't see it. So, people ask me, do you think they're connected? I can't not answer that question and not tell that story either. So it's what it is.
It's a weird world. It's just, kind of asks more questions. You're right.
There was an interesting theory about that I think Moneymaker did tweet about, but it had something to do. No, I think Cliff was talking about it on their podcast, and he was saying Moneymaker talked about this thing. It has something to do with like tectonic plates in the earth. In certain areas might be more, they have more like, I guess, energy from the, the magnetic. I was describing it so horribly, but basically there's certain areas like Shasta, for example, it's a volcanic magnetic area. So maybe these areas are producing balls of light because there's more energy in that area versus other places. So
yeah, I think it's like piezoelectricity, where pressure on rocks and crystals can sometimes make an electric charge
in the air,
and it will discharge and put up like balls of light. I think that's one of the theories about like the Brown Mountain Lights in North Carolina. But no, I get what Moneymaker's trying to get across there.
So I'm maybe thinking like maybe there was Bigfoots and maybe that's what happened. That's what caused the ball of light we saw. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, who knows indeed. For sure. So do you have any other upcoming expeditions or projects coming up? I think you mentioned you're headed back to Bluff Creek, but is there any other place that you're headed to this year?
Headed to Bluff Creek for sure. Then I think we're going to do just a couple of days in Oregon, up in Mount Hood. Going to go up there. And then that's about it for this year. I will be filming new episodes for that. My recent trip that I was just on was in South Florida. That was a couple weeks ago with RPG and my buddy Ron, which I have a brand new episode that's almost finished. That's coming out next month. That'll be a good one. So, but yeah, that's pretty much
cool.
My trip is just this year later on.
Yeah. Do you have like a favorite, besides Bluff Creek, what would you say is your favorite spot to go and research?
Besides Bluff Creek, I don't get there as much as I would like to. And I've only been there once. Man, it's down between Oregon and Bumping Lake in Washington. But, man, Bumping Lake was pretty cool. Yeah, I'm probably going to say Bumping Lake.
Gotcha. And that's in Oregon, you said?
Or Washington.
Oh, okay. Where's that near? I'm unfamiliar
kind of
with.
Near, I want to say it's not too far away from Yakima.
Oh,
you can see Mount Rainier from the lake on a clear day.
Cool.
It's a really cool spot. There's a couple areas that I really want to get back there and explore. And so I'm hoping one day I'll just plan a trip for just going out there and hanging out and doing some more exploring.
Yeah. Is that a pretty close to the area of like the Freeman footage? Because wasn't Paul Freeman from Yakima?
I'm not sure where Paul's from, but I think it is in Washington. Yeah. I can't remember where it's at exactly. Deduck Springs, I think.
Okay.
But it's a whole beautiful area up there. Definitely recommend. I mean, if you just want to go for like a cool summer vacation and go chill on the lake, it's a sweet area for that.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And maybe you'll see a Sasquatch.
Hopefully.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this has been a lot of fun, Tate. Before we go, can you please let my listeners know the best place to find you and your work online? You
can find me on YouTube at Tate Hieronymus, TateHieronymus. That's on YouTube. And then you can find my Instagram. I want to say it's Sasquatch, a search for Sabe, or it's just a search for Sabe. You can find that. That's where I'm going to post a lot of stuff from trips and all that. And those are pretty much my two socials that I like to point people towards.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you again so much for joining me, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you. All right. Thanks again to Tate for coming on to the show. You know, one of these days, I really got to get out there and go squatching. One of these days. I don't know. I think it's great that we've got people like Tate going out there and doing the work. So definitely check out Tate online, and I'll have all of his links in the show notes. As always, I want to give a huge thank you to everyone out there who checks out the Strangeology podcast. Those of you who download it, share it with friends and family. Word of mouth helps me out so much. When you do that, the Strangeology podcast really wouldn't be possible without the support of listeners like you. And because of that, we have listeners in every corner of the world, pretty much. And we are quickly approaching 500,000 downloads to the show. So I think I'll try to be doing something special when we hit that point. So definitely stay tuned. To any advertisers or companies out there looking to collaborate with the Strangeology podcast, or if you are someone who would like to be considered for an interview on the show, if you are an author, a researcher, an expert, an experiencer, please send all inquiries to info@strangeology.com. You can also send me a DM over on social media on Facebook, TikTok, or Instagram. My DMs are always open. And also, if you have any feedback, it's always great to hear other people's thoughts. So again, my DMs are always open, and you can also email me info@strangeology.com, or just go to the contact page on my website, strangeology.com. Also, if you can leave me a review over on Apple Podcasts or on whatever platform you're listening to this show on, if they allow reviews, it would help me out so much if you did that. A 5-star review, please, if you love the show, and I really appreciate the support. And one more reminder, if you haven't followed me over on all of my social media accounts, whatever your preferred one is, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Threads, YouTube as well. I'm most active posting short form content on Instagram and TikTok. So if you're looking for more from me, or if I haven't posted a new episode in a while and you're wondering where I am, definitely check that out. Follow me over there to get the day-to-day updates. All of the links will be in the show notes. And finally, if you are looking to grab some Strangeology merch and you want to support me that way, you can check out my Etsy shop. The address is strangeology.etsy.com, and I've got a whole assortment of cryptid, alien, and otherwise Fortean gear available on things like t-shirts, hoodies, tank tops. Cooler weather is going to be coming pretty soon. I've also got blankets. I think I said hoodies, sweatshirts. So I've also got stickers, magnets, prints, mugs, enamel pins. There's so much stuff, and I'm always working on new designs, so make sure to check back often. Again, that's strangeology.etsy.com. I appreciate your support so much. All right, I think that's all for me for now. I'm going to take a quick break here. Tate was able to hang out for a little while longer to chat more about Bigfoot and a whole bunch of other stuff. So it was a super fun conversation. Tate is a great dude. He's so much fun to talk to. So you're not going to want to miss it. Patrons, stick with me. And for everyone else, until the next time, take care of yourselves and each other, and keep it strange. back to Strangeology Beyond, your exclusive portion of the show. Thank you so much, Tate, for joining me for the main show and for hanging out for